Hello, I'm Chris.
And I'm Scott.
And we're two guys brewing.
Today we're going to be making a recipe called EdWort's Haus Pale Ale. It's one that I found over on the homebrewtalk.com forums, and it's also been in Popular Mechanics magazine one time when they did about 10 different recipes, and it looked like a pretty easy, simple recipe. A lot of chit-chat over there on the forum, and a lot of people highly recommended it. And, so we're going to make up a batch for our local homebrew club meeting coming up here in April.
We're running a little short on this. We should have done this about a month ago.
Yeah, we're kind of short on time, but this is a pretty light ale, or not too, not too big, and not so we should be able to turn it over in time.
Yeah, we should. We're actually when we take beer to the club, it's all on tap. So we're going to be kegging this one. So we'll actually show you a little bit about kegs and cleaning them and whatnot, and how to. It's a lot easier than bottling in a lot of respects, especially this method.
We're using a little bit different techniques today. We're going to be doing a brew in a bag outdoors on a turkey fryer, which so we're introducing some new equipment. Going to grind our own grains.
So it should be fun and hopefully not too long.
Let's get started.
Yeah.
So our brew today is a recipe I found online at homebrewtalk.com. It's called EdWort's Haus Pale Ale. It's a simple recipe. It calls for a 60-minute mash at 152 degrees. Now, he goes through a batch sparging method. We're doing a brew in a bag brew today, so our process is a little different. And I can directly heat all, my mash tun, so to speak, because we do it all in the boil kettle. And so that's what we'll do, is we'll add our grains and heat them up to 152, and then let it rest for 60 minutes. After that, we can remove our grains, start our boil. We got a couple ounces of Cascade hops in this recipe. 1 ounce at 60 minutes, a ½ ounce at 30 minutes, and then a ¼ ounce at 15, and another ¼ ounce at 5 minutes, for 2 ounces total of Cascades. We're going to use Nottingham yeast today. That's what he calls for, but you certainly could use an American ale yeast or a different kind of English pale ale yeast, like I don't know, SO4 or something if you want.
Here at Dunkirk Homebrew, we offer a wide selection. Our malt extracts are Breese liquid, Munton's liquids, Breese dry malt extracts, Brewer's Best beer ingredient kits, and we carry a full line of grains from Avantgarde, German malt, Dingemans, Munton's, Breese, a full line of specialty grains, special beef, flaked rice, white wheat, you name it, we've got it. And we will crush it for you, no charge.
Okay. So we've measured out our grains on Scott's little home scale here. That's half the grain. That's the rest of it there in a white bucket. Scott's got his own grain grinder here that he picked up, and a little blue bucket from the store that sells blue buckets. Grind the grain using a drill.
I haven't used this in a while, so hopefully it has some battery left in it. We're making a pretty simple pale ale today. It has calls for, I forget what the recipe was, 8 pounds of 2-row or 8 pounds of Pilsner malt. We're going to use some 8 pounds of Golden Promise, and then 2 pounds of Vienna, and ½ pound of Crystal 10. I didn't have any Crystal 10, but I had some Crystal 15. That's going to be close enough. So maybe I do.
we're going to introduce a new piece of equipment to you today. This is commonly called a turkey fryer. You can see it's hooked up to a propane tank. Got a little burner in there. There's some. You can spend, as little as 70 bucks on one, or as much as 300, depending on how nice you want to go. Always follow the manufacturer's directions. It's a nice day here in Western New York. We're in the 40s. I mean, it's still got snow on the ground, but it's
not a blizzard anymore.
It's going to be pushing 50s. I mean, it's practically bikini weather, and this is not something you want to use in your house. Our friend Steve Spears from last week, he said he tried using one of these in his basement once, and pretty sealed up in a basement. And he said he used up all the oxygen and he ended up in the hospital.
So don't do that.
Yeah, there's other fire hazards and things. I'm sure if your insurance company found out that's what caused the fire, they're not going to fix your house. So,
Generally, portable propane indoors is a bad idea.
Yeah, so we're going to put our water on there. We're doing, how are we doing today? About 6.5, 7 gallons in there. 7 gallons, right?
It's going to be 7 gallons.
And this should get our water boiling much faster than doing it on a stove. We're going to do a mash out here, and then we'll actually do our boil out here, and then unfortunately we're not set up to do our wort chiller outside today at the
set it in the snowbank or something.
Yeah, we'll probably do that. We'll figure something out, but the hose is still a little bit frozen, so they're not going to be able to do that. We're probably 165, almost 170, according to that.
Alright, well, by the time we had 8 pounds of cold grain in there, we ought to bring us down.
You can see we got our bag spread over the top of the pot. This is Scott's method, and it works really well for him. Just going to dump the grain right in there.
Alright, I've added my bag to the kettle, and I use these little binder clips that you get at the office supply store or wherever, dollar store. And use that to hold it in place. Sometimes I put like a cooling rack in the bottom so I don't scald my bag, but hopefully that won't happen.
That you think the grain's going to drop the temperature enough?
I think it will. So I'm going to add my grains now, or dough in, and we're just going to kind of slowly add them and try to stir them in as I go. And you don't have to be too slow, but you don't want to just dump them in too fast either. We want to get them. Make sure we break up any dough balls that might form as we're doing this.
And something to keep in mind with these turkey fryers, they do heat up a lot faster than on the stove. So you really got to kind of keep an eye on your temperatures. If you get talking or drinking your beer, you can just about guarantee that your temperature is going to jump up real quick on you.
It's not so bad when you're boiling or whatever, but when you're doing a brew in a bag mash style like this, it's easy to overshoot your temperature, I guess, and get it too hot. Alright, I'd say that's pretty sufficiently mixed up.
Now the dough balls do eventually kind of break up, right?
Yeah.
As they sit and soak.
I try to stir them. Everything will settle down there in the bottom, and it actually turns into one great big dough ball, I suppose. But you want to make sure that you don't have any dry grain in there for sure. If it's dry inside the middle of a dough ball or something, then it ain't getting worked on. I'm not converting anything there.
Now we actually did run this grain through the mill twice today.
With the brew in the bag, sometimes people complain about efficiency and whatnot, and that's one of the things that people suggested you might do is a little finer crush. And I didn't actually want to set my mill to a smaller gap to mill it smaller. I just decided to run it through twice, which did make it a little bit finer than it was after the first time.
Alright, so yeah, it looks like we're at about 158-ish, 157, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it definitely dropped the temperature on that a good 15 degrees. We'll let it sit and cool a little bit while it's mashing. Actually, probably should check the time. This is an hour mash, right?
Yeah.
So 1 hour mash. So 12:53. God, what an ungodly hour of the morning.
157, 158. It's a little higher than I want it. It's
but it'll actually cool, especially sitting out here. It's going to cool more than if it's sitting on the stove or in a cooler.
It's probably what, 45 and in the shade here today. A little breeze blowing.
Yeah, so it'll cool down. With any luck, we didn't destroy too many of the enzymes we're looking for.
Oh, we're fine. If it was 168, then I'd be worried. You know, our mash out temperature. I did a beer like that once, and actually it still turned out to be beer. It was kind of a 3.2 or 3.3 beer.
Very sweet, huh?
It was a little bit sweet, but it wasn't undrinkably sweet.
No. Actually, I think our biggest concern is going to be making sure that it doesn't cool down too much.
Yeah, now in 30 minutes or so, I probably will have to come out here and add a little heat to it. It probably will be too cold, so I'll put the top on it and let her chill for a while. 30 minutes, maybe I'll go have a beer. Afternoon, right?
It's always noon somewhere. Oh, I've been drinking for an hour now.
All right, so as we said, we're going to be kegging this beer today, and we got a couple kegs here to show you.
Yeah, hang on. Yeah, we'll let's go over different kinds of kegs, and then I'll actually pick that up and bring it right over and get a lot better picture.
Okay, so what we have here are these are used soda kegs,
which are called Cornelius kegs.
Cornelius kegs.
Or Corny Keg, made by the Cornelius Keg Company originally. They don't,
yeah.
Now this is a different kind of a keg than if you go to if you got a normal keg system in your house, or if you go to the bar. Those use a Sankey keg, which is a different.
Completely different animal than what the big breweries use. Like I said, these ones come from traditionally were used for soda pop. Home brewers have picked them up and found that they work really good for our home brew. And there's two different kinds. One was generally called a Pepsi keg or a ball lock keg, and that's this type. And the other one is from Coke used, and that's called a pin lock keg. And the difference in them is, other than their dimensions, like you see the ball lock's a little taller than the pin lock's a little bit bigger around. They both hold 5 gallons. And these attachments here are different. They take a different fitting. This one has little pins that you push down and turn it to lock it on. And this one is more like a compressed air fitting or something that maybe you guys got out in your garage where it just snaps on there and snaps off.
If you already have a Sankey keg system, you can change the connectors to connect over to a Corny Keg system.
Which you probably want to do as a home brewer, although it is possible to do. I mean, you could keg in Sankey kegs and stuff too, but
yeah. When you're kegging your beer, obviously, you can actually prime a keg just like you prime a bottle, and I do something similar to that myself. But you don't have to. You can actually force carbonate your beer. Basically, you hook it up to your system, put the CO2 on it, wait, what, like 3 days, 4 days?
The colder it is, the faster it'll carb up. Give it a stir. I'm sure it's cooler around the outsides.
Oh,
152 is kind of what we were looking for.
I can hold that for you while you're...
All right.
Now it says 140.
Yeah, so we do want to put a little heat into it.
See, you see the difference, the temperature in the middle and the temperature around the outside. Obviously, the outside was a lot cooler. All right, well, this is the first time we've actually brewed outside in these temperatures. So, we've, last time we brewed outside, I think it was in the 60s or 70s. Another thing, the propane tanks, as you're using them, they cool down too. So. They tend to get.
It's cold out here, but it's not. I mean, you can have a problem where they freeze up. Your regulator freezes up, but that's not. I was reading about the books from the 70s. They recommended pitching your yeast with a slice of bread, floating it in your wort.
When I first started brewing, and I learned about it at that meeting, and the guy that was doing the mead, that's what he said to do. And the guy that was doing the home brewing said, "Don't do that. That's stupid." Just sprinkle your yeast.
Probably worked. What are we at here?
About 150.
Yeah, we can go a few more degrees.
Yeah.
I say we go to 154 because we're going to cool down a little bit.
Cool down again. We'll probably be about 15 minutes left by the time we get it up that high, but it'll cool down just about that much. So obviously, it's not going to be. This is not the perfect mash. If it was the perfect mash, we'd be out here the whole time stirring and the thermometer in there and adjusting the heat up and down as we go along.
I'm confident it's still going to make a fine, drinkable beer.
Yep.
For this batch of beer, I wasn't sure whether I wanted to use like the Nottingham or an 05 or an 04. Mm-hmm. So I was researching those yeasts, and people either love Nottingham or they hate it.
I like the Nottingham.
Some of the people were hating it were complaining about a metallic taste in their brews. And I thought I could relate to that metallic taste in some of the brews that we've made or we have at Beer Club.
Yeah, because definitely this will be the third time we use the Nottingham. So.
I got it. So I'd like to see the.
Our hour is well up. Oh yeah. Oh, you trying to get up the mash up temperatures?
Oh, which would be around 168. So if we're at 170, I ought to turn the gas off.
We're at one. Yeah, we're like at 168.
All right, let's turn.
So I guess we've already mashed out. Hey, bonus! We mashed out a little early. This beer has the potential to be a little bit sweeter with a little lower alcohol, but
we'll see.
We'll see. We'll figure that out by our gravity readings. Definitely kind of flying by the seat of our pants tonight.
Every time you brew with me, you're flying by.
So you're gonna leave it like that for
a couple minutes. All right. So I'm doing my mash out here. I'm gonna remove the bag. We're gonna see what happens here.
we've done it before, so hopefully it works. Are you gonna put that over this?
Eventually, yes. So we're draining our grains here. It's this probably step right here that makes brewing a bag not so efficient as other sparging, mashing sparging.
Right.
Because, if you're going to get serious about brewing a bag, you probably want an overhead pulley or something that can suspend this bag to sit here and drain, and just stuff is. 170 degrees is pretty hot.
Right,
my hand's not hot right now.
You want to let it sit there and drip for half an hour or whatever.
Right, just let it keep draining. We can start our boil. That's all fine and good. But
to squeeze it out, and you're not supposed to squeeze it.
What I usually do is I wrap around my spoon. I think squeeze it a little bit.
Right, but I've seen directions that say not to squeeze it.
I don't know.
It's probably mostly so you don't burn yourself.
They're probably talking about extracting tannins or something. I don't know.
That's probably because they don't want you to burn yourself.
Right, so now
what Scott did was he pulled the grain bag out of the wort, wrung it out a little bit. Now we got it sitting on top of a colander here, and kind of draining into this pot. And that's going to give us a little more wort to throw into the boil.
And hopefully that'll help us with our efficiency numbers if we actually bother to calculate them.
I don't know that I've ever bothered figuring out my efficiencies.
So that's
and not to say that you shouldn't. I mean, figuring out your efficiencies actually is probably a good idea, especially if you're not ending up. If you do the math on your OG and your FG, and you're not ending up where you think you need to. At that point, you really should start worrying about efficiencies.
There's lots of different places in your process that you could lose.
Right.
But if you're trying to make a really big beer and you're coming out with a really small beer, then you better start looking at your process. And
I mean, the first place to look is, especially if you're using a recipe that somebody else has created, and the information's there where the OG and where the FG should be. Use their numbers, and you can compare yourself to somebody that's done it already. And usually, a lot of times in a recipe, they'll tell you what their efficiencies are, what they expect their efficiencies to be. So there's a lot of information out there for that.
There is, and
I've never really worried about it.
Everyone has a slightly different process, slightly different equipment, and those things will affect your numbers in the end. But
I know. I mean, I check my OG and my FG, and I do the calculations. I know where my beer is, and if I am doing somebody else's recipe, which I very rarely use somebody else's recipe, but if I am using somebody else's recipe, I know what their alcohol content is, and I got a pretty good idea where I'm at. And if I'm, if it says, it's a 5%, and I come out at 4.5 or 5.5, I'm good with that. And if I came out at 2, I'd be upset and I'd be worried about it. But 4.5, sure, I got too much water or not enough water. I understand that. So.
Things like, but your crush can really affect your efficiency. And
Yep.
Your equipment can really, your process, your technique. There's so many different factors that can go into it.
Right. So you got your grain crush. And obviously, if you've got the right amount of grain to begin with, which is another thing. I mean, also we're using, was it Crystal 15 instead of Crystal 10, and that's going to play a part in it.
As far as the crush goes, everything's a trade-off in homebrewing, it seems. Most everything. Like, for instance, you want it to be crushed as finely as you can possibly get it. But if you crush it like flour, then you're going to get a stuck sparge, and your process ain't going to work anymore.
But you're going to get more
yeast. That's the balance right there. You get a really efficient, if you can get the wort out of the grain. If it's crushed like flour, you're going to have great efficiency, but you need to be able to extract the water through, from that flour. And if it's too fine, you get what's called a stuck sparge, and that's going to ruin your day.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and you're not yet the next day too.
That's what like everything is. It's all a balancing act.
Right.
Different processes, different equipment, all.
So where else? Your mash temperature can affect your efficiencies. Yeah. So brew in a bag as opposed to a full grain, an all grain, where you're sparging and everything. And you're sparging,
sparge or fly sparge.
It's a different style of sparge, so your style of sparge can affect your efficiency.
Using a round cooler as opposed to a rectangular cooler.
Once you get into the boil, you're pretty good. You're pretty good. I think your efficiencies aren't good. Your boil's not going to generally affect your efficiencies at that point.
Well, if we take a sample right now,
your yeast.
If we take a sample right now, that can help us to know what to expect, or maybe if we're like coming out with really low numbers or something, maybe that's the time to try to maybe add some dry malt extract or something, liquid more, to actually make it back into beer again if it's going to be like way off.
Yeah, and the other thing is your yeast. Different yeasts have different properties, different attenuation factor, different conversion factor. So I mean, the difference between a Nottingham and a Windsor, the Windsor is going to dry it out more than a Nottingham is. So you're going to end up with a slightly more sweet malty beer with the Nottingham, whereas the Windsor is going to be a little drier. So that's all part of your efficiencies.
Yep, and whether mash temperatures too. You can take the same grain. You can take the same exact grain bill and mash at 150 or 156 and come out with a different beer. Especially if you switch up the yeast too.
We swapped out the propane tank and it made a huge difference. And as a matter of fact, you can see we are boiling like crazy here. And we're really close to the top on this.
It just about boiled over. I had to turn the heat down.
All right, so we're actually going to do an OG reading here. That's probably more than enough. Let that cool for a minute. And we are going to call this 60 minutes. Here's the hops. So you got, we're going to call this 60.
You got a time check?
Yeah, well, I will in a second. So we're putting in our ounce of, what kind of hops is this? Crystal?
Cascade.
Cascade. Another C. Cascade. An ounce of Cascade hops. And, charge the battery. Alright, and we're at 227. So,
call it 230.
We're going to call it, we'll call it 230-ish, and then we'll go from there. Alright, when we are at about 30 minutes here, so we got another half ounce of...
30 minutes.
That is...
Cascade, half ounce of Cascade going in.
Half ounce of Cascade going into the boil. This is what I want to talk about right here. Not this, our wort that we're going to do our OG on. This. This. Now, if you go to a microbrewery or something, you probably have seen these before. This is called a growler. As a home brewer who is kegging your own beer, this is your friend. If you're kegging your beer, you can't grab a six-pack and take it with you. But this will allow you to put your beer out of the keg into a portable container and carry it with you, take it over to your friend's house, like I am at now, and drink your beer. So we're putting in a 1/4 ounce. This is an induction cooktop. Is that what it's called, induction?
Yeah.
I mean, and they are like the state of the art in the 1970s, and this thing is freaking smart. But it's not beer smart. So you use that turkey fryer, and it's amazingly smart compared to that. You turn it on and it works. You shut it off and it stops. Induction cooktops, They have their own agenda.
You should have brought the hops with you.
Well, I was waiting for you.
Here we go. It's our last 5-minute edition, which means we have 5 minutes left in our boil.
Yay. T minus 5 minutes.
We got a nice rolling boil down there. Well, it's, let's see. Well, 4-4, I would say.
I'd say you're pretty close. All right, having that facing that direction?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Seems stable. Now this end is supposed to go on the hose outside. Unfortunately, the hose outside is frozen. We're improvising. We're chilling. This is a stand.
Doesn't matter. I can't really use the faucet while I got the thing.
It's a stand. It's not a propane burner at this point because there is no propane.
I'm not going to turn it on.
But it does make a pretty sturdy kettle stand.
And as far as this particular camp chef stand goes, I'd recommend it to someone if you. I mean, it's not the greatest, but it's not the worst.
Where'd you pick that up?
It's you know, I think I bought it from More Beer or something on one of their daily specials.
Damn. I mean, there's lots of online places you can get
Amazon
stuff.
Amazon or whatever.
You know, if you keep your eyes open, you know, on Facebook there's a group. What's the name of that group?
Homebrew Finds, it's called.
Homebrewed Finds. You friend them, they add you right away. But you got to make sure that you set them as that they always show up in your feed, because they do. They're always popping up. Something, and sometimes they're not that great of a deal.
Sometimes it is. All right, so I got an ale pail here.
Ale pail. Yay.
Today is March 14th, Pi Day. Happy Pi Day. I'm gonna keg it around probably April 1st, April Fool's Day. So
You gonna wait that long, huh?
Yep, because I only think it needs 5 or 6 days. I'm gonna keg it, good pressure to. So I got a pail here that I need to wash up a little bit. So I got some Star Sand here. Hope it's still good. It's a little dated. Looks a little cloudy, but I think it'll be alright. We'll see. This is what happens when you leave stuff soak in OxyClean too long. It's all white and cloudy like that.
You can see. You can see this one here is pretty clear, and this is pretty cloudy.
And our 2 minutes is about up for our contact time on our auto siphon. I just siphoned some Star Sand through it. Our wort here should be just about all chilled.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not working too good, man. I'm not real happy with this.
There you go. It's working now.
It's working, but we're at like 4 gallons or something, or
yeah, we're definitely under 4 gallons. Like 3.5. Can't see through that. You gonna add water? Whoa! Yep. Your hydrometer in here, and we'll see where we're at before we go dumping water in there.
That's way high.
You think it's gonna be that high? Well, if we're 4.5,
I think it's gonna be high enough that I can fill up to 5 gallons of water. Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Never mind. We're at 61. You're gonna add a gallon of water?
Yep.
Yeah.
You tell me when.
You're going up to 5?
Yeah.
I guess you're right. I think you're right at 5 gallons,
Right.
actually.
That's what I was trying to do.
So basically, we boiled off more water than we wanted to.
Yeah, you want to go at a pretty. It was going at a pretty rapid boil.
It's
Well,
it's in the rim of your cap,
We're still
too.
around 46, I think, though.
Really? Oop.
Which surprises me because we're at 44 when we started or something, so I didn't really drop or get. It's not 51.
Well, we were definitely almost 60 before we added water.
I'm gonna pitch my Nottingham dry yeast. No rehydration. Not saying you shouldn't rehydrate, but I'm not gonna this time. I'm just gonna sprinkle it on top of my wort.
There we go. That's it.
Put my cover on.
Yeah. Steve didn't rehydrate last week either. He was like, yeah,
I've done it. I have rehydrated. I never had a problem not rehydrating. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I've done it both ways. I like both ways. These ones, I'm going to spray the bottom. I'm just going to go in there.
Oh, in there. The little black thing is where he said there.
And I fill mine with Star Sand. I like it that much. I would fill it with vodka if I had some vodka or some grain alcohol or something. I wouldn't be afraid to do that for a minute. And that's the reason why I like these so much is because when I go to cold crash, the other type will suck my 3-week-old water or Star Sand or whatever I have into my beer. And it doesn't make me happy when that happens. So I put Star Sand in there. At least if that happens, this kind doesn't, if I cold crash it, which I'm probably gonna, this will not, it'll just bubble through and won't suck it into my beer.
So what exactly is cold crashing? We talked about a little bit about it.
Cold crashing is when I'm, cold crashing is I got this little fridge over here that I have set up where I just use that for the end of my fermentation. I don't use the secondary too much anymore, but when you're at the end of your fermentation, whether you're primary or you're secondary, now I'll let this go, like I said, for almost 3 weeks, just right in here now. Call it the primary and secondary all together. This is going to bubble for probably 3, 4, 5 days, and that's just about going to stop. Let it sit in there and chill. At the end of 68 degrees, at the end of however long you're going to ferment for, 10 to 21 days, toss it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days. I go 35, 32, somewhere in that range. Even I get really close to freezing. So.
And what's that do?
I end up with everything settles out. All the yeast flocculates out. I end up with a really solid, heavy yeast cake and really clear beer. So it helps clear my beer.
So we're at 48 on this one.
I hope it'll be
it'll be fine. Nobody will know the difference.
Nice, quaffable. Another batch done. It's a lot of work to do a batch beer, man.
It is.
I think it's the same amount of work to do a 10-gallon batch as it is a 5.
It is. It is the same amount. That's why we're going to stop doing these 5s pretty soon.
That's absolutely true.
Hi, I'm Steve Spears. I'm the owner of Dunkirk Homebrew. We are a local homebrew shop here in the Dunkirk, Fredonia area, located at 3375 East Main Road, Dunkirk, New York. We are a full-line supplier of beer and wine brewing equipment and supplies. Come on down. Most of my customers become my friends. Thank you.
My name's Harry, and I'm with the Brewers Club here, and I'm tasting EdWort's Haus Pale Ale. And real pale ale drink. And this is one of the better ales I've had in a long time. On aroma, I gave it 11. Appearance, I gave it 3 out of 3. Flavor, I gave it 19 out of 20. Mouthfeel, I gave it 5 out of 5. Overall impression, 10 and total, 48 out of 50. It's one of the better ales I've had in a while.
Okay, aroma, 10 out of 12. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Flavor, 18 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 3 out of 5. Overall impression, 8 out of 10. I'd like it to be hoppier. Total of 41 out of 50, but
aroma, a 10. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Flavor, 16 out of 20. Mouthfeel, a 3 out of 5. And an overall impression, 8 out of 10. With a total of 39 out of 50.
The first rating is aroma. This beer didn't have a strong aroma. For a pale ale, I was expecting a hoppy aroma, which I did not find. It had a slight different aroma, an estery type aroma, which might not be a positive, but it was not bad aroma. It did not taste like it was infected or anything. It was just not perfect. The appearance was very good. It was a nice straw color, exactly what you wanted. Slightly hazy, which is not a problem because most home brews will be hazy. Flavor, the flavor was decent. It could have used a little more hop bitterness, I thought, for the style. Did not have enough hop bitterness. Mouthfeel was deep, very nice. I mean, it was a light to medium body, which is what you want. I think we had a nice body. The overall impression was it was nice. It was refreshing, easy beer to drink. The aroma I gave 6 out of 12. Appearance was 3 out of 3. Flavor 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel 4 out of 5. Overall impression 7 out of 10. 25 out of 50.
On this beer, I am scoring it with aroma of a 4 out of 12 and appearance of 1 out of 3, mainly because it's quite cloudy. For flavor, I'm giving it a 15 out of 20. And the overall impression, I gave it an 8 out of 20 because it's a very drinkable beer. And since it arrived here this evening, that is the only beer I've been drinking. So, at any rate, at that point, I guess I would give it an overall score of a 31.
Okay, aroma, I gave it 3 out of 12. There's some aroma in there, I can't detect what it is. It's not offensive by any means. It's pleasant, but don't know exactly what it was. As far as appearance, I gave it 1 out of 3. It's very light in color. And slight cloudiness, not offensive by any means.
Dirty people showed up.
Flavor, it's very mild, and I have no real aftertaste. Kind of maybe a mild lemon taste, very slight. Mouthfeel, not bad. It was somewhat warm, slightly creamy. My overall impression, well, the mouthfeel was 4 out of 5 there. And overall impression, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It'd be a great summer afternoon lawnmower drinking beer. I liked it. It was fine. I give it 26 out of 50. Sure.
Okay, I found the aroma to be peppery, the appearance slightly cloudy, but a nice yellow color. The flavor, I found a slight bitter aftertaste, but it was clean. I enjoyed it. The mouthfeel was smooth. What are you doing? And I thought it was a good daytime beer for the overall impression. 3 for aroma, 2 for appearance. Flavor was a 15 out of 20. Mouthfeel was a 4. Overall impression was a 7 out of 10. And a good daytime beer. Total score 31. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.